Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs, you got the characters, you got their team. Whether it is the refinancing question, you think, what am I going to refinance for? I mean, I got a 3.5% interest rate. Interest rates aren't down to that again. There are instances where you can still come out ahead, particularly if you have other debt. Alex Carricker some time ago shared a story with us about some gal who was in that sort of situation, and she had locked in really great interest rate, and refinancing would have been at a higher rate, but when they looked at other debt that she had, they were able to consolidate things, refinance, and then although the interest rate was a little bit higher, overall shorter term to pay it off and less money per month. Now, everyone's going to be different. Some, they'll tell you, nope, it's really not necessarily a wise move for you, but you're not going to know unless you ask. And then, of course, there's just the straight-up home loan. Maybe you're a first-time home buyer, you don't know anything about the process, and you want to know a little bit more about it. Or the reverse mortgage, exactly what that is, and does that fit you? They're there to answer all those questions, and their phone numbers. You know, a lot of times, I know it can be frustrating. You want to talk to a real person, and you go to the website, and you can't find anywhere to do that. Like, I just want a phone number. I just want to talk to someone. I just have a simple question. You go to iwantagreathomeloan.com, and up at the top, you'll see two names, Alex Carricker and Anthony Carricker, and each one has their cell phone number right there, so you can reach out to them directly at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. A number of primary elections taking place. Texas, of course, getting a lot of the attention, and I think it's fair to say things have played out the way that they were largely expected. You've got the Democrat establishment successful in blocking Jasmine Crockett, the female black candidate, from winning that primary, and instead handing it to the white guy, which is typical when it comes to the Democrat Party, and when it really gets down to it, they demonstrate, this is just, I'm talking historical references here, they use people of color when it comes to their benefit, and then the moment that they feel as if that's going to prevent them from getting done what they need to get done, they go straight to the white guy. This is Joe Biden over Kamala Harris. This is Tallarico in Texas over Jasmine Crockett. This is the reason Crystal Quaid went to court to try to have a black man thrown off of her ballot. This is why the DNC did everything they could to throw Cornel West off the presidential ballots during the last election. It is get them out of the way if they don't know their place. And Jasmine Crockett was one of these obstacles. Their fear that trying to support a woman of color to win that Senate seat in the general election wouldn't be worth it. It'd be too hard. So they go with the standard white guy, because when it really comes down to it, it is about priorities, of course. Now, Jasmine Crockett is complaining about some funny business, though she is proving to be someone who knows her place in the Democrat Party, because despite the fact that this was a primary, and you're talking about Dallas, and Republicans wanted her to get the nomination, she's blaming Republicans for some of the confusion at the polls with her voters, because she knows what she's supposed to do as a good, dutiful Democrat person of color, and that is defend the party first and foremost. And so that, of course, is what she's doing. Then you have on the Republican side what will be a runoff. Cornyn and Paxson will be facing against one another, and that is going to come up on May 26th, the runoff elections, and we'll get into some of the details on that. Neither of those candidates got 50% of the vote, and that's why that happens. We're a little different in Missouri. I think our system is horribly bad, I guess, just to reduce it down. We've got a system that does not do runoffs in primaries. And so when you have 7 or 8 candidates that all run, the top vote getter can get 19% of the vote, and then the second 17%, 16%. And we just, in Missouri say, well, you win, even though 81% of people voted against you. In states like Texas, if there is no one candidate that gets 50% plus one of the vote, then they take the two top vote getters and have them run against one another. So whomever gets the nomination to actually run for that seat is someone that a majority of the voters actually voted for. I've always thought that seemed like a no-brainer system. It always seems to me if you are selecting someone for, whether it's the nomination to run on the ticket or the ticket itself, it ought to be someone that a majority of people vote for, not just whomever got the most votes. And, Missouri's just out of line with that, and I don't see there any chance of that changing in the future, largely because it helps protect incumbents, that particular system we have in Missouri. All right, by the way, Crenshaw. Most of you are familiar with Dan Crenshaw, kind of controversial, eye patch Republican guy that at times has really hit out at Trump. He is the only incumbent during this election cycle that he lost. He got booted out. And that's a pretty difficult thing to do as an incumbent in a primary, to lose your seat unless you just have done something horribly, horribly scandalous. In fact, there's a Republican that is going to be in a runoff election that in his district, he was challenged in this primary, and he's been in the news. He's got a little bit of national news, but certainly down in his district, because he was having an affair with a staffer who was married, and the staffer ended up, her husband found out about it, things went south, and she lit herself on fire and killed herself in the aftermath of her husband finding out about it. And there's been calls for that Republican to step down, and of course he didn't, and he got enough votes to stay in it, but he will have a runoff. Now, whether he'll win in the runoff or not, but if you're Dan Crenshaw and you as an incumbent lose, but a guy who's running for re-election, and now they weren't in the same district, so but still, you got to be thinking, man, that guy had an affair with a staffer. The staffer's husband found out about it, and it was a whole messy drama thing, and then she ends up lighting herself on fire to commit suicide over it, and that guy doesn't get voted out of office in the first round of voting. I mean, if you're Dan Crenshaw, you got to be thinking, oh, I must really be unliked. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day with a high near 65. Tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms with a low around 52. For your Thursday, showers likely mainly afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Friday, showers likely in the afternoon and then mostly cloudy with a high near 76.
Happy Hour Friday Vineyard Market 4 to 6, and they will be taking donations to go for support of family members who lost loved ones in the killing of 2 deputies and then 2 shot, and then also the families of those that were shot. Vineyard Market and a number of other businesses, B29 being one of them, they're working and coordinating for a big fundraiser that's coming at the end of the month, a big event. In the meantime, however, of course, they're working very closely, all of them, with Christian County and the Sheriff's Department there to make sure the dollars go when they're needed. And part of that is going to be during our happy hour, 4 to 6, a donation, and Vineyard Market, they're going to cover your first drink for you. And that will be, again, Friday, 4 to 6. We'd love to see you. Come hang out. And it looks like the weather's going to be nice enough, barring any sort of storms or anything, where we can hang out outside in the patio area, which is always really nice. The Democratic Senate primary race fraught with issues after a mishap in Dallas County, of course. Does this not always happen in areas in which Democrats have their hand in running elections? To some degree, to some capacity, particularly when it comes to Democrat primaries. The Democrats run around talking about how Republicans and Trump want to disenfranchise voters, yet every time there is some sort of colossal screw-up, it's in an area of the country in which Democrats are either heavily involved or have sole control over the elections. You look at a state like California, particularly the blue districts, in which it's one-party rule, and I think it was weeks that go by before they are able to officially count all the weeks, and it's all electronic. We get told that, well, we can't count ballots. That'll take too long. Yet somehow, and again, it vexes the Democrat-run areas of the country, they somehow manage to make it take longer with all the technology and advancements we have today to count electronic votes than it ever took to hand count ballots. And so Jasmine Crockett and the Democrat primary down there facing some problems with, now this is a town hall at the time of printing, 63% of the expected vote tallied. State Rep James Tallarico, the white candidate that the Democrat Party was pushing for, appears to have won the nomination. However, a mishap occurred in Dallas County where Jasmine Crockett resides when a judge extended voting hours by 2 hours because voters lacked proper information about where to vote. The reason for the confusion is that the county abruptly switched back to precinct-only, party-separate Election Day voting after years of county-wide voting centers and joint primaries. It appears the county failed to inform voters of the change. Crockett addressed her, just how does that happen? Like, this is your job, is to run elections. And you have elections being held at certain locations in a certain way for years and years and years, and you apparently very close to the election day itself, decide to switch that, and it never crosses your mind, we probably should let people know about this. Crockett addressed her supporters later in the evening, saying that voters would not know the final outcome until today because of the mix-up, saying we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Now, I don't think there's any realistic expectations that she is actually going to get this. The Democrat establishment's going to get their white guy. But, of course, it isn't the Democrats who are at fault here. Of course not. For all of the talk about how Jasmine Crockett can't be controlled by anyone, it's clear she knows what she's supposed to say when it comes to being a good person of color that is a Democrat. And it isn't the fault of Democrats. No, here she is last night pointing the finger to her supporters.
So that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why.
There aren't a tremendous number of races that were happening yesterday. But there was no Democrat that Republicans wanted to win more than Jasmine Crockett. There were numerous Republican voters openly on social media and Texas talk radio talking about how they were going to vote and that they had voted in the Democrat primary to vote for Jasmine Crockett. You know, there's this, in fact, some aggravation amongst a lot of Republican voters that there was too much at stake to be trying to, fiddle around with the Democrat primary, and the race between Cornine and Paxton was too important. And then down ballot as well. There were a number of other races that were significant races in Texas. And, it is an open primary, but when you go pull a party ballot, you vote for that party's nominees through all of the races. You can't go back and forth. So in other words, you can't say, well, I want to vote in the Republican primary for, governor, but when it comes to Senate, I want to vote in the Democrat primary. You have to just pick one or the other. And so there were a lot of Republicans that were aggravated and really pushing against what other Republican voters were doing, and that was trying to get Crockett to get the nomination. Because the conventional wisdom, even amongst Democrats, was that there's no way that seat would flip blue, as Democrats are hoping that it will, if Jasmine Crockett was the one on the ballot in the general election. When it came to the whole Stephen Colbert fiasco, and Stephen Colbert recording an interview which he knew was never going to air on television. That wasn't the point. This was a psyop, essentially. Because when you utilize public airwaves, and if you interview during a campaign cycle an official candidate, then you must also give the same amount of airtime to that candidate's opponents, one of which would have been Jasmine Crockett. And that would not have affected the Republicans, by the way, because they're on a separate ballot. So it had nothing to do with Republicans whatsoever. It was all an operation to make sure Jasmine Crockett, the black woman, didn't win. This was an operation by the Democrats. And so Stephen Colbert knew that he would not be able to air that unless he had Jasmine Crockett on as well. And there was a third candidate, Hassan somebody or other. He was also a person of color. So Colbert does the interview and then claims that the Trump administration's so afraid that the seat's going to turn blue that they are forcing them, threatening them, to not air that interview, which of course wasn't true. What they did, or the FCC, reminded them of what they did not need reminding, because everyone in broadcasting knows this when it comes to equal time for candidates. It was all done so that Stephen Colbert could make Tallarico look like he was the anti-Trump individual. He was the one that the Trump administration was afraid of, and then draw all the attention to this interview that he then promoted over on YouTube, because Jasmine Crockett was leading in the polls. And that whole fiasco was a bit of a turning point that arguably lost her the election. It was rigged against her by the Democrats. Stephen Colbert leading the charge. There was no one, politically speaking, that did more to try and help Jasmine Crockett win than the Republican voters, at least some of them, by crossing over to vote for her. The FCC, by holding to the consistency of the rules, telling Stephen Colbert, you have to have Jasmine Crockett on if you're going to give this Tallarico guy free airtime. And what a disappointing display for the average black American that really looks for some strong black woman that is willing to stand up against the establishment, because what does she do? She does exactly what she needs to do. Oh, it's the Republicans' fault, not the Democrat Party that sabotaged her. Not the Democrat Party that rigged the system in order to make sure that she, as a black woman, lost to a white guy. Nope. Oh, no, it's the Republicans that did it. When it all comes down to it, Jasmine Crockett proves that she's not some strong, independent black woman. She's just as dutiful as the next one. That as soon as the party snaps its fingers, she stands at attention and says, "Give me my orders." Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Hunter Hardscapes and outdoor lighting, hardscaping, landscaping. It's funny, my wife and I, we were driving, I guess it was the day before yesterday, and I like to take back roads when I'm not in a hurry. My wife sometimes jokes, she's like, "How do you even know where you're going?" I'm like, "Well, this is what I do whenever particularly if I'm by myself and, I don't have to get home immediately and I don't want to go home." No, I'm kidding. Like, God, I'll just drive around. I drive by the house a few times and then think, I'll just drive around some more. If nobody's home, and I just like to do the driving thing, drive around, and you just find it's amazing how you can live so long, and sometimes your whole life in one area, and then there's places you've just never even been that are right there, and ever since. Not just having Hunter Hardscapes and do our outdoor living space, but just knowing what it is they do and getting to know Daniel Hunter and the crew that does all that stuff, I really begin to notice work that is done on homes, especially like retaining walls, because now I know what all goes into it, at least the level of craftsmanship that they deliver. And I remember when they were laying our patio, I mean, they had the laser, balancers and, all these different devices. Every single patio stone, every single one of them. And it was just well beyond what I had anticipated would go into it. And so I really now notice these things on homes when it comes to the landscaping, and it just improves the overall look and value. But when you're doing a living space like we had, of course, just the usage of your home in your backyard or your front yard. But they also do, like I said, the lighting and landscaping as well. You can see much of what they do by going to the site. They've got the nice little before and after slider thing. It'll be a picture, and then you can click on the vertical line and slide it back and forth and see the before and afters and read reviews. And there's even a ballpark figure estimate, so you can get a bit of an idea of what it is that you're looking at in terms of improving the look and value and usage of your home. They're at hunterhardscapes.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day with a high near 65. Tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms with a low around 52. For your Thursday, showers likely mainly afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Friday, showers likely mainly afternoon and then mostly cloudy with a high near 76.
So Jasmine Crockett appears to be out. Democrats were successful once again in making sure the white guy won. There was a person, Middle Eastern descent, a man running in that race, and then, of course, Jasmine Crockett. Let's be very, very clear. If this were a Republican race, it would be lead story, behind perhaps Iran, on how Republicans rigged an election to make sure the white guy won. but because Democrats did it, and the media knows, the media is part of this. The media knew that Jasmine Crockett would be a potential hindrance to the acquisition of that Senate seat, and so they're all part of the game as well. I just don't know when you people on the left are going to wake up and realize this stuff. I mean, and I suppose some of you, you know it and you're fine with it. This is why people don't take you seriously when you cry racism and you point the finger at Republicans and claim that they're suppressors of the vote and that they don't care about diversity when you behave this way. Now, on the Republican side, the runoff election will take place May 26th, and the winner will advance to November's general election. This is the Cornyn-Paxson vote. Texas GOP Senator, incumbent John Cornyn, and State Attorney General Ken Paxton headed to the runoff election, neither candidate receiving 50%. Cornyn held the lead Tuesday night, receiving 43% of the vote compared to Paxton's 40.5%, according to the AP, with Texas GOP Rep Wesley Hunt finishing in third, 12.9% of the vote, and did not advance to the runoff. Now, those numbers, just on the surface, don't necessarily bode well for Cornyn because Cornyn is the incumbent. And while the people who vote, Paxton is a controversial figure. He has been attacked by the Republican Party. He's been accused of being unethical. He's, all of this stuff. I mean, frankly, it's the same sort of narrative that was against Trump. Now, I don't know if he's been targeted specifically for political purposes like Trump was. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure people in Texas have a much better line or certainly opinions on that. But the narrative's the same. Oh, this guy can't win. And this is exactly what the Cornyn people in campaign were saying, is that he's too saddled with scandal. He's had marital issues. He's having marital issues. I mean, virtually every complaint that was lobbed against Trump by the establishment Republican Party as to why it is that he would, quote, lose the general election are the same things that are being lobbed towards Paxton. Obviously, however, there are a lot of Republicans that don't like Paxton. But so here's the thing, and this is where it gets a little bit muddy, perhaps. Generally, in a runoff situation like this, if the incumbent does not get at least 50% of the vote, that does not bode well in the general election, because what this means is that the other voters voted against the incumbent. They just did, because that's the default. If you aren't voting for the incumbent, generally speaking, we're talking about in a primary, it's because you really don't like that person. It is a very, very difficult thing to get people to vote against an incumbent. And you're always going to have a handful, a small handful of individuals that are disgruntled, but generally speaking, it's a walk. It's very easy for an incumbent to win. So if you're an incumbent, you're running, and you have, because collectively here you're talking 13, so 53% of people voting against you, because the question, of course, is going to be Wesley Hunt, who got 13% of the vote at the time of the writing of this story. Where will those voters go? That's basically what it boils down to. Are they going to go to Paxton, or are they going to go to Cornyn? And Cornyn, being the incumbent, the fact that the odds are those 13% really don't like him. Now, do they like Paxton less? Do they like him more? There's going to be a lot of money that is going to be spent for that runoff election coming up in May. And I can tell you what the theme is going to be. The theme's going to be that Cornyn is the one that can keep the Senate in the hands of Republicans, and that's good for Donald Trump, and there's no way Paxton can. What the ironic thing is going to be that they're going to cast Cornyn as the Trump ally, as the guy that is going to be responsible for keeping the Senate in the hands of Republicans, therefore as an ally to Donald Trump. When Donald Trump, the reasons that Cornyn campaign will tell you not to vote for Paxton are the same reason that the establishment Republicans told you to vote against Trump. Yet Cornyn at the same time is going to be, or Cornyn rather, at the same time is going to be saying, painting himself as the Trump guy. Then there's Crenshaw, many of you recognize as the eye patch wearing Republican. He makes the news every so often. He's one of the top winners when it comes to buying and selling stock. Many people see him to some degree as the Nancy Pelosi of the Republican Party when it comes to stock purchases and stock sales. And he's also he's taken swipes at Trump. He's really ripped on people, Republican Trump supporters, for January 6th. He had a back and forth with Tucker Carlson in which, there were accusations that he said he'd kill Tucker Carlson. He said he never said it, but then a reporter had audio of him actually saying it, and so he lied, and all this sort of stuff. Well, he ended up losing the primary. Just the News reporting that Crenshaw became the first incumbent to lose his primary Tuesday night after challenger Texas State Rep Stephen Toth won the nomination. Crenshaw was the only Republican incumbent in Texas to seek re-election without Donald Trump's endorsement, according to the AP. Trump did not endorse his opponent, but his opponent did get the backing of Senator Ted Cruz. And then the more scandalous one, though it hasn't gotten as much national attention, GOP congressman accused of having an affair with a staffer who has since committed suicide by lighting herself on fire will see his primary race head to a runoff after Tuesday night. Tony Gonzalez of Texas failed to clinch more than 50% of the vote in his Southwest Texas district after dealing with the scandal for several weeks. Gonzalez was accused of having an affair with and sending sexual messages to a married staffer in his Uvalde office who died after setting herself on fire near her home in September of 25. Gonzalez, a married father of 6, has pushed back on the allegation and accused the late staffer's husband of blackmail attempts, which there is some of the behavior is by the husband is behavior that people could characterize as an attempt to blackmail because of the affair, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen, of course. And it did. I mean, they have text messages. I mean, there's no doubt that it did occur. He posted on X in late February, during my 6 years in Congress, not a single formal complaint has been levied against my office. Now, days away from an election, coordinated political attacks reign in. It won't work. Halfway through early voting and the intensity resides with TG voters. I'd rather be us than them. He's now fighting for his political life against social media influencer Brandon Herrera, who has been endorsed by the conservative House Freedom Caucus campaign arm. And so that is what's going on in Texas. I wanted to play, I thought this was just really pretty precious. On The View, there was a discussion about the Clinton questioning, the committee video that was released. We played some of this audio yesterday. And Whoopi Goldberg, of course, defended Clinton, of course. Openly asking, has anybody ever even accused? She's completely oblivious and confused about why is Clinton even involved in this? I don't understand. I mean, has he ever even been accused of anything? Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. We've got lots of rain in the forecast over the next couple of days, which is bad news bears for them older roofs out there. Now, over the next couple of days, if you experience any yellowing on your ceiling, leaks, maybe your gutters are not keeping up, make sure that you have a trusted professional on your side. And my go-to guys are the fine folks over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. The Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections. They work with you through the insurance process without making you sign anything, which not all roofing companies do that, by the way. And they offer discounts on new roof installs for our military and our first responders. They are awesome to work with. They won't upsell you and they won't use scare tactics. So over the next couple of days, if you experience any roofing issues, don't stress. Just reach out to Josh. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
I think like a lot of people who follow what goes on nationally, there's a recognition that one of the more unpopular Republican members of Congress, particularly in Trump world, was Dan Crenshaw of Texas. But what I don't follow him clearly as closely as people in Texas or his district does, but apparently a common nickname for him was Eye Patch McCain, referring to John McCain as sort of a traitor to Republican voters. And, of course, he has an eye patch. I found that to be particularly humorous, eye patch. As you can imagine, there's a great deal of celebratory comments on social media that he lost his primary, and much of it is referring to him as Eye Patch McCain. The View co-host Whoopi Goldberg defended former President Bill Clinton. Oh, gee willikers. This, after his testimony to the House Oversight Committee regarding his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, arguing that he has not been accused by anyone in the Epstein files. Now, here, for those that maybe have a misunderstanding as to why it is when some of these people go on about the Epstein files, so many of us don't listen. And it's because here you have somebody like these gals on The View, who, by the way, it's not a representation of everyone who have grave concerns. I think most thinking people, particularly MAGA America, have for years and years and years had a problem with the way all of this was playing out. But here you have these women on The View that go on and on about just the need for people to be held accountable, and they just wave this flag of importance and significance when it comes to making sure anyone and everyone is revealed in transparency until it's one of theirs. And then it's like, well, I just don't understand. Why can't they just leave him alone? You're full of crap. You don't care about any victims. You don't care about law enforcement, or the law being enforced. You don't care about child sex trafficking victims. Like anyone and everyone else, those victims are only useful to you if you can use it against political opposition. The minute it swings back around and it looks like one of your people might be implicated in this, suddenly it's irrelevant. Well, I just don't understand. Now, for those that may scratch their head in the world of Whoopi Goldberg and go, yeah, has Bill Clinton ever, this isn't even, it's not difficult to find out. I just went and grabbed this story from a few years ago. Headline, Bill Clinton dined with young girls on Epstein Island, victim claimed. Bill Clinton twice visited Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean island, where he had dinner with two, quote, beautiful girls who looked like sisters, according to newly released court documents. Epstein victim Virginia Guffrey told attorneys that former U.S. President Bill Clinton visited the so-called pedophile island on 2 occasions within weeks of one another. Mr. Clinton has strenuously denied ever visiting Little St. James. In her 2016 deposition, which was unsealed on Tuesday, again, this is from a few years ago, I believe. I believe it was that far back. Unsealed on Tuesday by a New York court, Guffrey claimed during both alleged visits that Mr. Clinton, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Epstein dined with 2 other young girls. Asked to describe the girls at the first dinner, Guthrie said they were, quote, young, beautiful, like every girl that's generally around Jeffrey. Quote, there was a dinner, lots of laughing, lots of joking. It was just a dinner, and then I didn't have to do anything with Bill Clinton. He was never sexually involved with me. I've never witnessed him sexually involved with anybody else. Speaking about the girls who joined them for dinner during the second visit, she said, it sounds funny, but I thought that they were sisters. They looked so much alike. They were beautiful. They were younger. I don't know exactly their age. Asked whether the former U.S. president was a witness to the sexual abuse of minors, Guthrie said yes, he would be a witness because he knew what my purpose there was for Jeffrey, and he visited Jeffrey Island. She added, there's pictures of nude girls all around the house, at all of the houses. It's something that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't shy about admitting to people. By the way, that same victim also testified that, that she had never heard or had no reason to believe that Donald Trump ever participated in abusing any minors. This is why some of these people have absolutely zero credibility on this issue. There are a lot of things about this that are horrible, nasty, awful, signs of injustice. There is, without question in the minds of most people, and the evidence bears it out, that there has long been numerous attempts to downplay this and cover it up for years and years and years. But when you have people that are on networks like The View on a network like ABC that's presented as an information show, and a lead host is like, I just don't know of anyone who's ever accused Clinton. When these are unsealed documents, these things have been in the news. You're dealing with you just shouldn't listen to these people. Have no credibility whatsoever. Either she is straight up lying and utilizing ABC as a network in order to spread the lies, or she is so ignorant to subject matter that she is supposed to be an authority on that even the most obvious components to issues that they are covering are, she's disconnected from. There's another site, factuality.co. This is a site it's not really like a fact check, but it takes particular issues and really boils them down surrounding certain questions. And one of the pages regarded what witnesses have claimed to see Bill Clinton, or which witnesses have claimed to see Bill Clinton on the island. And they also list Guthrie, formerly Virginia Roberts, alleged in litigation and depositions that she met Bill Clinton on the island and that he attended dinners there on at least 2 occasions. A former Little St. James worker by the name of Steve Scully told a Netflix documentary he saw Clinton sitting with Epstein on the island's villa porch. Sarah Ransom is reported to have made explosive allegations and written material later the defense used, and her claims were described as retracted and unreliable in court filings, including allegations about sex tapes and high-profile figures, which sparked reporting about Clinton among them. Now, none of this means that it's absolutely true. But even aside from this, all of the connections, the financial connections with the Clinton Global Initiative and Ghislaine, and then to claim that there's zero reason to talk to Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton about Jeffrey Epstein because no one's ever made any allegations, you cannot be any further from the truth. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Springfield's Talk 104.1. There is a briefing that we're going to go to live. NBC News Defense Secretary Hegseth. Secretary of War Hegseth holding a briefing on Operation Fury, and we'll go to that now.
Our warfighters have maximum authorities granted personally by the president and yours truly. Our rules of engagement are bold, precise, and designed to unleash American power, not shackle it. This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be. Thus far, Operation Epic Fury has delivered twice the air power of shock and awe of Iraq in 2003, minus Paul Bremer and the nation building. The campaign has 7 times the intensity of Israel's previous operations against Iran during the 12-day war, 7 times. And as President Trump said, more and larger waves are coming. We are just getting started. We are accelerating, not decelerating. Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour, while American strength grows fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. More bombers and more fighters are arriving just today. And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile. We used more exquisite standoff munitions at the start, but no longer need to. Our stockpiles of those, as well as Patriots, remains extremely strong. The enemy can no longer shoot the volume of missiles they once did, not even close. And the chairman will lay out some of those percentages. So our air defenses and that of our allies have plenty of runway. We can sustain this fight easily for as long as we need to. And as I said yesterday, we set the terms. Now, you may not see much of it because the IRGC shut off the internet to the entirety of the country. They blind their people on purpose, just like they kill their own on purpose. Much was made of the volume of missiles Iran was able to shoot in the first few days. And sadly, as we projected, a few got through and killed 6 of our best, who will hopefully arrive home soon. We will avenge them, no doubt. But I liken Iran's predicament to a football team who scripted the first 20 plays of a game. The team knew what plays to run because their first few drives were scripted. But now that the game has started and the blitz is on, they don't know what plays to call, let alone how to get in the huddle and call those plays. Iran's senior leaders are dead. The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room. Senior generals, mid-level officers, enlisted ranks, they can't talk or communicate, let alone mount a coordinated and sustained offensive. That's not great for morale. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. In fact, last night, we sunk their prize ship, the Soleimani. Looks like POTUS got him twice. Their Navy, not a factor. Pick your adjective, it is no more. In fact, yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh. Now, this is not a mission accomplished situation. This is simply a reality check. The combination of U.S. and Israeli intelligence and combat power will control Iran, and will control it soon. Sure, Iran will be able to shoot some missiles and still be able to launch one-way attack drones at civilian targets, and their proxies will attempt to attack our embassies, bases, and soft targets. They are terrorists, after all, and they need to target civilians because they can't fight toe-to-toe. But we will find them, and we will kill them. This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step. As I said Monday, the mission is laser focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them, annihilate its navy and critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to nuclear weapons. Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb, not on our watch, not ever. And this is why President Trump's moral clarity on Iran today is so vital. Unlike the past, where vague red lines and endless negotiations let Iran fund terror and inch ever so slightly toward a bomb, this president sees the threat plainly and acts decisively. No more half measures, especially when Iran is at its weakest. No more letting Tehran play for time while our people pay the price. His leadership ensures that we finish what we start and that we protect our warfighters by crushing the enemy before they can strike again. Our offensive operations, refined through months of relentless preparation, are unstoppable. And our defensive efforts are unprecedented. We have from the start put the protection of our troops ahead of everything else. Before we very publicly built up offensive combat power, we quietly ensured that our defensive posture and power was in place. And as we built up offensive combat power, we moved the vast majority of American troops, over 90% of Americans that were on our bases, what we say off the X, out of the range of Iranian fire. Our defensive shield is equally formidable, the most sophisticated air and missile defense network ever fielded. Thousands of Iranian missiles and drones have been intercepted and vaporized. Tens of thousands of American and allied lives protected. We have pushed every counter-UAS system possible forward, sparing no expense or capability. And like I said, this does not mean we can stop everything, but we ensured that the maximum possible defense and maximum possible force protection was set up before we went on offense. In closing, as President Trump told German Chancellor Merz yesterday, Iran negotiated in bad faith, stalling, scheming, and preparing to strike. And we acted decisively to defend our people, our interests, and our allies. President Trump took bold action, putting America first, the kind of bold action that the American people elected him to execute. To our steadfast partner, Israel, your mission is being executed with unmatched skill and iron determination. Fighting shoulder to shoulder
I suspect that the Joint Chief is going to be, the chairman here is going to be speaking, that being Kane, in just a couple of moments. So it was, Pete Hegseth seems as if he's perhaps wrapping his live remarks here. Do want to go ahead and get traffic and a break in. That way we can, if Kane is going to be speaking next, carry him as well. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Protect.
All right, I do want to go back to that presser as Hegseth wrapped up. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Staff now speaking at the podium.
First, we are targeting and eliminating Iran's ballistic missile systems to prevent them from threatening the U.S. Forces, partners, and interests in the region. Second, we are destroying the Iranian Navy, degrading its capacity, capability, and ability to conduct operations, not just in the Central Command AOR, but as the Secretary showed in the video, around the world. Third, we're ensuring Iran cannot rapidly rebuild or reconstitute its combat capability or combat power, and those phases will begin as the campaign continues. As of this morning, U.S. Central Command is making steady progress. Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days. This progress has allowed CENTCOM to establish localized air superiority across the southern flank of the Iranian coast and penetrate their defenses with overwhelming precision and firepower. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces. Let me explain a little bit about how we're thinking about staying ahead of the enemy. First, over the past several weeks, Admiral Cooper and the CENTCOM team have refined their operational approach to the region. Their planners identified key centers of gravity that would allow Iran to project power outside of its borders. They thought about how to isolate critical vulnerabilities and determined where, with precision, the greatest strategic effect could be achieved. As a result of this, CENTCOM is now shifting in day 4 already from large, deliberate strike packages using standoff munitions at range outside an enemy's ability to shoot at us, now into stand-in precision strikes overhead Iran. As the Secretary said, this is a point of munitions transition from standoff munitions to stand-in munitions like Joint Direct Attack munitions, which are GPS-aided free-fall weapons, and other things like Hellfires, etc. This will allow the joint force to deliver significantly increased precision effects on the target. The throttle is coming up, as the Secretary said, as opposed to ramping down. This will allow us to maintain consistent pressure on the adversary over the coming days, disrupt their launch timelines, and impose cost every day around the clock. I know there have been a lot of questions about munitions. We have sufficient precision munitions for the task at hand, both on the offense and defense. But I want to tell you, teammates, as a matter of practice, I don't want to be talking about quantities. And I know there's been a great debate about that, and I appreciate the interest, but just know that we consider that an operational security matter. Let me flip to the map here. Hopefully I don't kill anybody with a laser pointer. As I mentioned earlier, and for you with the camera right there, my friend, I hope I don't ricochet off and hurt you. Over the initial days, the U.S. Joint Forces continued to attack and attrit ballistic missile capabilities as well as integrated air defense capabilities along the southern axis. Along the northern axis, Israel and the Israeli Air Force has predominantly been working integrated air defense targets along the northern flank, as well as medium-range ballistic missile capability as well. From the sea, the USS Ford has continued to project combat power here, as well as the bomber pulses that we talked about in the opening days of this briefing. Along the southern axis, the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group has continued to provide pressure from the sea along the southeastern side of the coast and has been attriting naval capability all along the strait and up into the Arabian Gulf at a size and scale sufficiently to address the targets required. To date, we've hit over 2,000 targets, as Admiral Cooper said in his video last night. We've destroyed more than 20 Iranian naval vessels, including, in addition to the frigate outside of the area, one submarine, and effectively neutralized at this point in time Iran's major naval presence in theater out there. As the Secretary showed the video, for the first time since 1945, a United States Navy fast attack submarine has sunk an enemy combatant ship using a single Mark 48 torpedo to achieve immediate effect, sending the warship to the bottom of the sea. I want to remind everybody that this is an incredible demonstration of America's global reach. To hunt, find, and kill an out-of-area deployer is something that only the United States can do at this type of scale. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, CENTCOM will continue to strike infrastructure and naval capability, and will continue to assess our progress against the military objectives. It does take time for us to collect that information and to assess en route. Much of our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capability is currently hunting and killing ballistic missile launchers and one-way attack capability. We're precise in that assessment, and we call balls and strikes in that assessment. We take that matter seriously. Iran, on the other hand, has been indiscriminate and more imprecise in their attacks. They've fired more than 500 ballistic missiles and more than 2,000 drones, striking innocent civilian targets throughout the region. Our partners are answering the call to defend themselves right alongside us. Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait are all defending their people with their own combat capability, with precision and restraint. Jordanian air defense crews recently intercepted a cluster of Iranian one-way attack drones headed to Amman. Bahrain's air defense forces shot down an inbound drone approaching Manama's maritime infrastructure, protecting both their population and critical shipping lanes. Saudi Patriot batteries stopped a salvo of ballistic missiles aimed at energy facilities near Dhahran. The UAE neutralized multiple drones targeting Abu Dhabi's industrial zone, demonstrating speed and precision. And Qatari fighters for the first time have shot down 2 Iranian bombers that were en route to their location. Together, these nations are helping to defend themselves and project power as required against the enemy. We're 100 hours in. It's still very early, as the Secretary said, but the balance is shifting. We've always got to remember that these operations are complex, dangerous, and far from over. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen remain in harm's way, and we must be clear-eyed that the risk is still high. This is combat. Let us never forget this. As we continue, I ask that we hold all of our deployed teammates in our thoughts, those standing the watch, flying the sorties, sustaining the fight, and carrying our nation's burden. And I'll stop where I started, and that's remembering our 6 fallen who will return home as soon as possible. I remain humbled, grateful, inspired by every day the valor and professionalism of our joint force. They are quiet professionals through and through, out there doing America's work through the day and through the darkness. And with that, I'll take your questions along with the Secretary.
Go ahead.
What do you assess the enemy's control and command status is right now? And can you broadly describe our decisive point in this operation?
Oh, I won't describe the decisive point in the operation because that would tell the bad guys what it was.
Good question, though.
I appreciate the question. They're C2 structures in a bad way. Admiral Cooper's been continuing to pressure C2 at the IRGC C2 and other military elements, and will continue to do so. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Mary Margaret with the Daily Wire. A couple questions for you and then one for General Kane. Can you tell us more about how we took out the leader who was the leader of the group that was trying to assassinate President Trump? And then Turkey's defense ministry says NATO air defense systems intercepted an Iranian ballistic missile headed towards Turkish airspace. Could this trigger NATO's Article 5, and was it the U.S. who shot it down?
On the first question, we've known for a long time that Iran had intentions on trying to kill President Trump and or other U.S. Officials. And while that was not the focus of the effort by any stretch of the imagination, in fact, never raised by the president or anybody else, I ensured and others ensured that those who were responsible for that were eventually part of the target list. It wasn't the beginning of the effort. We were focused on missiles and launchers, and that's the focus. But ultimately, if we had the opportunity to get at those who are trying to get at Americans specifically, we would. And so we eventually had the opportunity to do that from the air. And then on the matter with Turkey, I'll have to get back to you on exactly what the intercept looked like at that. We're aware of that particular engagement, although no sense that it would trigger anything like Article 5. No. Tie right there. You got a tie?
Yeah.
Thank you. Come back to the BBC. Can you give us an update on what the administration knows, what you know now about the reported strike on a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday?
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that. Red tie in front.
Just on the basis that with the information you would have, your reconnaissance abilities, ability to gather information, I mean, it's several days on now. So is there any clarity on whose munition this was?
We're investigating it. Thank you.
Secretary, so there are reports that the administration is considering arming Iranian Kurdish groups. So could you please clarify that whether any such plan has been authorized or whether Congress or regional partners has been notified and consulted?
All I would say is none of our objectives are premised on the support or the arming of any particular force. So what other entities may be doing, we're aware of, but our objectives aren't centered on that. Green, right there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mike Lynn, Washington Times. Can you talk a little bit about the deconfliction process that's going on? You have two parallel operations, Epic Fury and Roaring Lion. How are you making sure they're not interfering with each other?
Sure, I'm happy to take that. Thank you for the question. We have liaison officers on both sides. There are U.S. CENTCOM teammates out in Israel, and there are Israeli Defense Force teammates at the relevant command and control nodes within the U.S. CENTCOM enterprise. Routinely, Admiral Cooper is talking to the IDF Chief of Defense, and I will occasionally speak to him through the arc of this. I've spoken to him a few times already. That allows us to coordinate, integrate, and synchronize activities while maintaining separate efforts.
And when I said a breath of fresh air, I really meant it. Usually it's us with some ancillary benefits from allies who are maybe willing but not as capable. When you have both the will and the capability of an ally that can really bring things to bear, we take certain targets, they take certain targets, and we coordinate it. It has incredible effects. Right here.
Secretary Hegseth, with respect to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' statement that the Iran mission will end in failure, what kind of message does that send to our enemies, and what does it do to the motivation of our troops?
Well, I've been through that movie before with the Democrats rooting against the country. Our generation saw that in our battlefields. I think it's pretty unprecedented and unfortunate that it would occur 4 days in to an operation where, as the chairman laid out, America's best are operating in an incredibly challenging environment where they're having incredible success, but they're meeting a determined adversary. And he's been privy to briefs that we've provided. He knows how effective this has been. He's being disingenuous, which we're used to. Right here.
Thank you for taking my question. Heather Mullins, Lindell TV. One of the questions I have is just really regarding the intelligence that indicated that this was something the U.S. had to get involved with at the time that you guys did. We had Operation Midnight Hammer back in June. We obliterated their nuclear facilities. What was the intelligence that suggested that somehow they became a threat once again that required us to get involved with Operation Epic Fury?
I appreciate the question. The evidence in front of us since the 12-day war was that Iran had no intention of actually negotiating a nuclear deal that truly meant they did not have a pathway to the nuclear bomb. And they had a moment. Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, two of the best negotiators in the world, poured into that negotiation, giving them every single possible opportunity to release that ambition, and they didn't. And the intelligence that we saw they didn't intend to do it in good faith, that they had the intentions eventually to get to a place where they could have a conventional shield to block their nuclear capabilities, as I talked about yesterday. So I would separate the what from the when a little bit. The what is They've been killing Americans for 47 years. They have thousands of missiles pointed at us. They have ongoing nuclear ambitions, and they're at the weakest they've ever been. So the when became, in a particular, hey, what makes the most sense to do this to ensure that the narrow objectives we have of ensuring they never have a nuclear weapon have a maximum effect? Yes, right here.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. I had two questions. First, what is your message to Iran's allies, namely Russia and China, who have called for an immediate end to hostilities?
I don't have a message for them, and they're not really a factor here. And our issue is not with them, it's with the nuclear ambitions of Iran.
Absolutely. And are any so-called fully autonomous weapons or other AI tools being used in Operation Epic Fury?
We've got a lot of autonomous systems, or systems that drones and others incorporated with smart AI aspects to them, but a lot of which I can't talk about here. Yeah. Yellow, right there. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. As you know, China is accusing the United States of invading Iran, a sovereign nation, and North Korea, which cooperates with Iran on nuclear development, has declared its commitment to protecting Iran. What is the United States' strategic response to this? And I have a second one. How many allies join with the United States to fighting against Iran? Do you have any numbers?
Well, I think what you're seeing right now is a response in the region to the belligerence of Iran and the willingness of them to target civilian airports, civilian hotels, civilian locations, civilian oil infrastructure of their Gulf neighbors who would have preferred not to be in conflict, didn't want to, but now realize that this is something that has to be dealt with. So whether it's UAE or Qatar or Bahrain or Kuwait or Saudi, on different levels, they're reaching out to us, whether they're going on offense, which they are, whether they're giving us additional access, basing and overflight. We're working very closely and collaborating with them. Also on air defenses. The air defense capabilities of those countries are significant, and when combined with ours and we coordinate, it brings simplicity to the shot doctrine, so we make sure we're using less munitions but being more effective with what we shoot at. And as it pertains to other countries, I'll sort of give the same question. They don't really bear on the case of Iran. We're going to deal with Iran's nuclear ambitions, and that'll send plenty of signals in the process. Right there. Purple.
Thank you so much, Secretary. I have two questions. One question for you and another question for Mr. Chairman. You ruled out that you are not engaging with the Kurdish forces, Iranian Kurdish forces, to incursion from the Kurdistan region to Iraq. But now, and today, Iranian said that under threatening the Kurdistan region, they said clearly, if there's any incursion from the Kurdistan region, they will attack all the Kurdistan region and go war with the Kurdistan region. What's your comment on that? And a question for Mr. Chairman, given comments that the U.S. forces might be deployed if necessary, under what specific conditions would you determine that deploying U.S. boots on the ground is necessary? And how would such a decision support and advance your stated strategic goals?
Well, I'm not going to comment on U.S. boots on the ground. I think that's a question for policymakers, and I don't make policy, I execute policy. I will say on the question in the back corner about helping Americans get out, first, it's a great opportunity to encourage everybody in the region to go to the State Department and register. Secretary Rubio's been trying to get that word out, and I'd ask you to help us with that, to have folks register. We've also opened up space available seats as C-17s and other airplanes come in to try to help folks get out, but that's really a State Department matter. But to answer your question, that's what we've been doing.
Absolutely. Last question right here.
Thank you. Reagan Reese with the Daily Caller. You touched on this in your opening remarks, but I'm hoping you could expand on it a bit. It's been reported that Iran might be trying to outlast our ability to intercept their missiles. It sounds like you guys are saying they don't have the ability to do so. Is that the case? Can they outlast us and their ability to do that?
No. Iran cannot outlast us. We're going to ensure through violence of action and our offensive capabilities and our defensive capabilities, as I said, that we set the tone and the tempo of this fight. That's why stories and speculation about different things that try to make it look like we're limited in what we can do. The only limits we have in this is President Trump's desire to achieve specific effects on behalf of the American people. And that's why we don't talk about, you can say 4 weeks, but it could be 6, it could be 8, it could be 3. Ultimately, we set the pace and the tempo. The enemy is off balance, and we're going to keep them off balance. And we know their ability to shoot versus our ability to defend. That difference gets wider and wider every day. Our defense gets better. Their offense capabilities diminish. As we are going into ammunitions that we, as we said, have tens of thousands of and can drop unlimited supplies on with even more effects than the standoff munitions we have now, which is why when we say the throttle's going up, the throttle's going up, and it's going to stay on high. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
All right. So we had the press conference, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, and then Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and answering, which honestly were a lot of really great questions. It was a fantastic press conference. None of those really what I would consider politically loaded questions, at least certainly not any that set the tone. One of the things, we're going to get a traffic update and get some commercials in. And then there's 2 areas I really want to talk about here. There's a lot of misunderstanding. And they're legitimate questions, and I understand why it is the questions exist, but they do need answered. And one of them is, well, if we took out their nuclear reactors, why were they still a nuclear threat? Legitimate question, but there's a very good, clear answer on that. And then this other, and you have Marco Rubio making comments in which the first part of his comments were removed out of the context regarding why it is we went when we went, and you have some on the left and Massey that are saying, "Well, look, it's proof that the Israelis drug us into this, that we did this because of the." No, that's not what happened, and there is understandable confusion on that. Some of that is. It is the messaging, not that the messaging is messy, but when you are in something minute by minute, day by day, you kind of forget that you are talking to people who don't know instinctively all of the nuances. And so you oftentimes will describe things in a manner that don't give a full illustration of what's actually going on because the audience isn't as in tune with what's going on. And so it's a lost in translation situation. It happens. It's understandable. But it does allow for people to either be misinformed or to deliberately misinform other people. So we'll have some of that coming up here in just a couple of moments. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day with a high near 65. Tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms with a low near 52. Thursday, showers likely mainly afternoon and then mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Friday, showers likely mainly in the afternoon and then mostly cloudy with a high near 76.
I want to address a question that gets asked, and it doesn't really get answered. And I think part of the reason is, again, the people who are in charge, they're so in, obviously, the know. This is... They're seeped in everything that's going on. And sometimes when people ask questions, the answer is one that doesn't reflect a true understanding of the lacking of information that the audience has. One of the questions, and it was asked of Pete Hegseth during the press conference just moments ago, why is it if we took out their nuclear facilities, why is it that they are still a danger when it comes to nuclear capabilities? And the answer is an accurate one, but it doesn't really answer what is being asked. And this is where the miscommunication is. So Hegseth noted, well, because they made it very clear that they were planning on continuing on with their efforts. A person that isn't in the day-to-day of this stuff hears that and like, but what is, okay, so what though? I thought, okay, but I thought we took that away from them. So what difference does it make? Now, here's the answer. And the reason this, I believe, isn't explained is because it's just not realized that the average person doesn't know it. The nuclear facilities that we took out were facilities that were used for the purpose of enriching uranium, and that enriched uranium is what is used in order to make the nuclear weapons. You have to have certain levels. And these were facilities in which they were enriching uranium. So it's sort of like the birthplace of, the origins of the nuclear weapon, if you will, in terms of the man-made component. And so because they continued to utilize these reactors in order to enrich the uranium, to have the facilities to have enriched uranium to get to nuclear grade, the decision was made, we have to take those out. That did not, however, eliminate any of the already enriched uranium, which, depending on what source you talk to, I mean, there was a great deal of debate of, quote, how enriched it was. Was it ready for nuclear development? Was it right on the edge? And it was largely acknowledged that prior to the taking out of that facility, that much of that enriched uranium was taken out of there. So, in other words, the bomb, quote, making material was not destroyed, just the capability of making more of it. And, some of the intelligence and reports was so specific, it was reported that that they were able to, essentially in, I think it was 10 vehicles, in 10 different vehicles in the trunks, had in the nuclear suitcases or whatever that they carry it in, briefcase, suitcase, however it's referred to, that enriched uranium was put into these containers and driven away in 10 separate vehicles to essentially be spread out perhaps in different areas and hidden throughout Iran, where there have been reports and intelligence that says there were other facilities as well. This was the main facility. So I think that whenever Hegseth or others or Trump is asked, how is it that why were we worried about them developing a nuclear weapon when I thought that's why we took out this facility? when that's being answered, there is, I think, a failure to recognize that the average person doesn't understand what that facility did, and the fact that the nuclear, enrichment uranium was taken out, and that, so the bomb making materials, to some degree, how close it was, again up for debate, was still out there. And in fact, it may have been the last meeting that was had of, quote, negotiations with the Iranians just last week or the week before with Wilcock and Kushner. The Iranians opened the meeting with, just so you know, we do have enough enriched uranium for 12 bombs right now. That's how that meeting started, in which they knew very clearly that this was not going to go anywhere in terms of any sort of negotiations. And now, what the Iranians could have been lying about that. But can you imagine if they weren't? And some of that nuclear material was used in order to make a nuclear bomb and do what it is that they've been saying they're going to do. They're not hiding this, and either use it on the Israelis or the United States. And then it comes out, well, the Trump administration knew. I mean, they told the Trump administration they had this stuff, and nothing was done. I mean, you can't even fathom the reaction there would be to that. And those are the things that I think intelligent people, while internally trying to think this over, is this the right thing? Is this the wrong thing? This going on, that going on, understand that, those are the decisions that people in leadership have to make. The downside of making a decision like that is you don't have this alternative time machine that shows an alternative timeline to where you can say, see, if we didn't do this, here's what would have happened. They did have, because they had smuggled out, before we took out the nuclear facilities, they smuggled out the enriched uranium, and they were able to create a nuclear bomb, and, they leveled New York City. See, we stopped that from happening. You don't have the luxury of that. People who are critical of going in as we are now have the luxury of us never knowing that. So you can always say, well, they wouldn't have done it, or we don't know that they would have done it. Well, and that is true. We don't know. Too often, people in leadership don't want to make those tough decisions. Many people would point to Bill Clinton and Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden was very clear about his intentions. It's one of the reasons that when countries in the Middle East didn't want him taking up residents in their countries, they called the United States, and they're like, hey, this guy that's wanting to really take you guys down and destroy America, we know where he is if you want him. And Bill Clinton said no, because he, quote, hadn't done anything to us yet. And I'm sure that the Clinton administration and their internal discussions were fully aware, if they went in and got this guy that at that point no American had ever even heard of, and said, well, he was going to take on the United States and launch some attack, we would have been like, this guy? He was living in a cave. And Clinton would have been criticized for it, particularly if there was any sort of military capacity involved, which in all likelihood there would not have been. But we would have never known what we had been saved from. And he took what many people would argue is the easy route. Well, it's just easier not to do anything, and then we had 9/11. The downside, again, of being in a position in leadership and making decisions like Donald Trump has made is you can't ever say, yes, prove New York City or L.A. would have been leveled by a nuclear bomb, a dirty bomb, because the Iranians, if we had not done this, that luxury doesn't exist. That's why these decisions aren't often easy to make, because you know that those who oppose you have the luxury of throwing all sorts of accusations at you, because you can't prove what would have happened. But that is, back to the original point and that legitimate question, why is it we were afraid of their nuclear capabilities if, in fact, we destroyed that nuclear facility? And that's because that facility was it was enriching the uranium. We wanted to put a stop to that because they kept doing it, but that they had already had some of that uranium enriched and had it out of there. So they still had their hands on that stuff. But, again, how close that meant they were to actually having an operational nuclear weapon. Publicly, we don't know that for sure. There's conflicting reports. Perhaps intelligence does know to a greater degree. But that's the reason that it still is a problem, even though those facilities were taken out. I know it's going to be redundant. We are going to jump back over to traffic here to fulfill our traffic obligations. We a little off on terms of when we air those traffic updates this hour because of the live press conference with Kane and Hegseth earlier this morning that we did want to carry. One other thing I do want to, because there's real 2 points of misunderstanding. One I just talked about, and the other I do want to talk about in the upcoming hour. And it's one that perhaps is a little more significant because it is being used and misused in order to try and paint Trump as simply being a puppet of Israel, and that's the only reason that we ended up attacking Iran was because of the Israelis, and that's it's very untrue. But reasonable people can have a misunderstanding as to just because of the wording of things. So I do want to talk about that coming up in the third hour. Again, to the traffic, I'm Nick Reed. Got hour 3 coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hello, welcome to the show, my friends. Friday, we have happy hour at Vineyard Market, and Luke and Heather Davis, owners, have been working very closely with a number of other folks, business owners, one of them being B29s, which is there in the same building as them on the other end of it in Ozark. And of course, the Christian County Sheriff's Department on an upcoming fundraiser. And we'll, as we get closer to that date, make sure to get you more information about it. We did, if you want to go back and listen to the 8 o'clock hour, the hour 3 of the Monday podcast, you can hear him talk a bit about it. It's going to be quite big, and in fact, it's outgrown the original space, and it is going to be at another location there in Ozark, which is the ball fields across the way. And as, again, we get closer to that date, which is going to be the last Sunday of March, we'll make sure to get all the information out for you. And it's all to raise dollars for the family members affected by the killing of the 2 deputies. And then, of course, the family members and the deputies, the other 2 that were wounded the week before last, I guess it was at this point. Yeah. And so at the same time, we have our happy hour 4 to 6 this Friday, and as part of all of that consistent effort, when you come to the happy hour that we'll be having Friday to just hang out, you can have dinner if you want or just drinks, you make a donation for that cause, then they're going to take care of your first drink for you. And hopefully the weather will be nice enough to where we can be out on the patio. Temperature is going to be great. It's just a matter of whether or not the rain will be there. But inside, outside, still be a great time and an opportunity to donate to a great cause as well. So that will be, again, happy hour 4 to 6 this Friday at Vineyard Market. One of the areas of confusion that has formulated and frankly been pushed deliberately by some people who are opposed to the Trump administration is that, Trump is being controlled by Israel. That Israel drug us into this war. Now, just on the surface, can we think about how laughable that is? Donald Trump being controlled by anyone? Are you serious? In fact, you think about some of the very real conflicts that have occurred between Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump, particularly when it comes to the Trump plan in Gaza. And, it wasn't just a few weeks ago that Israel was hopping mad because of some of the people that Trump was going to allow to be on this board of peace or whatever it's called, and very publicly came out against it and criticized Trump, and Trump held his ground. He's like, well, okay, fine, but this is the way it is. And so, I mean, but anywhere, can you find any example? As is oftentimes with critics of Trump, the critiques are so contradictory. On one hand, Trump is this irrational brute that refuses to listen to absolutely anyone. Then on the other hand, he's allowing a country, specifically Israel, to drag us into a war. I don't know that you can get any greater contradiction than that. Not to mention, he's Hitler, and he's letting the Jews tell him what to do. Think about that one for a moment. He's the most anti-Semitic president we've ever had. He's Hitler, but the one country that he allows to really slap him around and dictate what he does is the country that is the Jewish country. Kind of a contradiction there as well. There's 2 reasons that there is a misunderstanding as to exactly when and why we launched this effort against Iran. And part of it is because, same thing with the nuclear situation and their capabilities. The people who are providing us with the information from the White House sometimes forget that we aren't fully in the loop. And so There is a talking past us just a little bit, not deliberately, but just a lack of recognition that we're not in the minute by minute on this stuff, and so some of it doesn't necessarily translate. You also have some people that are deliberately taking out of context what Marco Rubio said. And what I don't like is that some of the people that are doing this are people that generally are people that you should listen to because they have demonstrated that they're about getting to the truth. But when you take a quote from Marco Rubio and you cut the first 10 seconds off of it, in which he says it doesn't matter, regardless of what Israel did, this was going to happen. That's what, the timing may be a separate situation, but this was, and you cut that part off so that it makes it sound as if he's saying the reason we did this is because of a reaction to Israel. That's just dishonest. That is not giving the audience or the people that you're sharing information with a full understanding of what is actually going on. And there may be a number of reasons for that, but at this point, the truth is what's important. So we're going to get a traffic update, get news here, and then kind of straighten out what it is, and we'll play what Marco Rubio said, and then what is really going on here in regards to the relationship between Israel and us and what really got this whole thing going.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day with a high near 65. Tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms with a low near 52. For your Thursday, showers likely mainly afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Friday, showers likely mainly afternoon and then mostly cloudy with a high near 76.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, you were talking about. I saw that posting. She had that.
She has a beautiful new home listed.
It may not be for the first time home buyer.
But it's
possibly.
beautiful.
Yeah, it is really, really incredible. If you go to her Facebook page, it's in Springfield, isn't it? Where did she say? I looked through it, saw the posting.
I looked through the photos too. I'll have to pull it up.
It's the sort of a property that would be in a movie.
Yeah. It's off of South Farm Road 181, 5147 South Farm Road 181, and it's in Springfield.
Yeah, so it's a great one to check out, even if you aren't necessarily in the market. But
it's fun to look at.
One of the things I do like about following Emily on social media is that she is different than some realtors you may be friends with that you follow, in which everything that they post is just house listings. And she does, particularly if they're those that kind of stand out, utilize social media for those purposes, but she utilizes it for a lot of other things as well that are beneficial and helpful, even if you aren't in the market to buy a home or sell a home. Just a lot of times you get into springtime or you get into winter, things to do in order to make sure that you keep your home in as top shape as you possibly can. And there are a lot of these little things that are easy to forget, to not do, and then the elements can deteriorate your home in certain capacities that otherwise it may not if you take these steps. And so it's just great about having a variety of information there. And then, of course, following her means that you will see a number of these pop-ups every so often of homes that are available in the market, and maybe if not you, someone you know is looking for just that. And then you can reach out to her that way also if you do decide maybe we'd like to sell our home. I wonder exactly what it's worth in this market, in this era, in this neighborhood. She can do that for you. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Let's tackle and get straightened out here the confusion over who decided that we were going to launch attacks against Iran. If you listen to some of the critics, not all of which are anti-Trumpers, but a lot of them are, Israel is responsible. Israel drug us into this thing. And Marco Rubio admitted it. You see, look, Marco Rubio admitted it. He admitted it. No, he did not. In fact, many of the people who are posting that Marco Rubio admitted that Israel got us into this thing have clipped off the first part of his comments. Now, we're going to play a couple of bits of audio because this has been revisited, and Trump has responded to this as well in a way that seems like a contradiction, but in reality, it's pretty accurate. And Rubio was asked, I believe this would have been yesterday, by a reporter whether the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury was driven primarily by Israel. And so here is the question, and then here is his response. And this is really, best I have understood, the beginnings of, Israel got us into this.
Two things I would say. Number one is, no matter what, ultimately this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen because Iran in about a year or a year and a half would cross the line of immunity, meaning they would have so many short-range missiles, so many drones that no one could do anything about it because they could hold the whole world hostage. Look at the damage they're doing now. And this is a weakened Iran. Imagine a year from now. So that had to happen. Obviously, we were aware of Israeli intentions and understood what that would mean for us, and we had to be prepared to act as a result of it. But this had to happen no matter what.
All right, and so here he is also addressing the same issue at another time.
I want to just clarify what you said. Because he said, but your quote is about, we knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack.
Yeah, I understand. But listen, all right, let me answer. But I had a very specific question from that gentleman, right?
The president said that
I have to
force Israeli.
Okay, but let me answer because this is my press conference. Okay. You asked me, I was asked a very specific question. So you guys can misrepresent it, but I was asked a very specific question yesterday. The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do. He will always put the safety and security of our men and women in uniform and of all Americans before anything else. He's always going to do that. And that's what he did here. In addition to that, I would argue that this threat from Iran, they are hiding behind these missiles and hiding behind these drones. They wanted to reach a point where you couldn't touch them, and then they could do whatever the hell they wanted with their nuclear program. And there was no way in the world that this terroristic regime was going to get nuclear weapons, not under Donald Trump's watch.
So the U.S. attack.
Right. Right.
Why did it have to happen this week? I'm saying it had to happen this weekend because of that Israeli action.
No, this weekend presented a unique opportunity to take joint action against this threat. And we wanted this to have maximum success. We want this operation to be successful at achieving its objectives. I'll repeat the objectives. The president laid them out yesterday. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It cannot have, and therefore it cannot have the things it was hiding behind to have a nuclear weapons program. What are those things? Number one, we are going to destroy their missiles and their missile launchers. We are going to destroy their capability to make these missiles and these launchers, and we are going to destroy their Navy. Those are the objectives, and this weekend, acting at this time, gave us the highest probability of success in achieving those objectives, and as the Department of War will brief you, we are on or ahead of schedule to do that.
So the U.S. attack would have happened no matter what. The U.S. attack happened no matter what Israel is planning to do.
Israel is going to act.
The president had already made a decision to act on the timing. The president acted on the timing that gave us the highest chance of success. And that's what you're seeing play out right now. You're seeing it play out right now, and you'll see it in the days to come. We will systematically take apart their missile program. We will destroy their ability to sponsor terrorism, by the way. We will destroy their factories. We will destroy their Navy. Those objectives are going to be met. We're well on our way to meeting them. It will not be easy. There will be a price to pay for it, but that is a much lower price to pay than having a nuclear-armed Iran. I got to go.
All right, so this actually is much simpler than it's being made out to be. This is how all of this occurred. Trump had made the decision that this action was going to be taken. Now, of course, after the decision was made, whether it was just for the visuals or because there legitimately was an offer, okay, we'll meet with the Iranians and, we'll tell them here's what is necessary in order for you to prevent this from happening. And so whether or not there really was much stock put in the possibility that they could avoid it from happening, point is that Trump had made the decision that we had to do this. Whether you agree with him or not, this needed to be done. Obviously, Israel's in the loop with this, and I'm sure a lot of these Arab nations were in the loop on this. And by the way, this wasn't a secret. Trump, over a month ago, remember, he said guns ablazing or gun. What he posted. We talked about it on a Friday. That Trump put him on notice, saying if you start slaughtering your people who are protesting in the streets, we will come in there. I mean, he on a number of occasions he gave a countdown, said in 10 days. Now, there was some confusion because instead of 10 days were supposed to happen. And then on day 9, the attacks actually got launched. Some people thought it was just an attempt to, throw the Iranians off, catch them off guard. Some people chalked it up to, well, that's just Trump. That's what he does. But what apparently occurred is based off of intelligence, like on day 9, the Israelis were like, hey, we know exactly where all these people are. Like right now, they are meeting together. Presumably, they were meeting to discuss the fact that day 10 was the next day. And what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? What should we expect? So all of this leadership, the head of the snake, intelligence, we know where they are right now. And because, and this is one of the reasons I believe that particularly under Trump, we saw this in Syria during the first administration with the ISIS being eliminated after years of Obama not being able to do it. And it was because the military said Trump gave us operational control because it's faster that way. We're the ones on the ground. We know what needs to be done. So we were able to be more effective in our fighting against ISIS. And that's how it was that ISIS got just obliterated in Syria. And so instead of, nope, that's not the plan, Trump was like, okay, well, then we got to do it now. And Israel was, their portion of it was the bombing of that particular facility. And so the decision was made, this is going to happen. Trump decided this was going to happen. A lot of these operations, obviously joint operations with Israel, but what then the timing of it, this opportunity popped up unexpectedly on day 9. And it was because of that we're like, okay, yeah, let's go. So Israel takes care of that component of it, which obviously the Trump administration recognized, okay, well, since that's happening, this thing is on now. We're not going to do that portion of it or allow the Israelis to do that portion of it and then sit back. This thing is going to start now. We have to take advantage of that opportunity. It's smart thinking. But to characterize this as we weren't going to carry out military action, but then Israel did, and we were afraid because Israel did that we were going to be attacked, that it drug us into something we otherwise would not have been drugged into. That's just absolutely not true. And it defies reason. Again, Trump has been saying for weeks, you guys are in trouble. We will come after you. We are going to do this if you do not comply with our... So it's part of the frustration here is, again, this isn't something that just came up out of the blue. Like, there was no talk whatsoever of military action against Iran until Israel did something and then we got drug into it. Do you think that, you just think about this aspect of it. All of this defies this narrative. The coordination that has been occurring, the coordination that has been required to pull this off, we're supposed to believe that that just magically happened when we weren't expecting to get into, we weren't planning to have a military action against Iran until Israel did this, and then we're just like, well, we scrambled because now we got to do something. None of it lines up with reality. People can, I feel like I keep saying this over and over again, but 90% of the discussions, the debate over this are discussions and debates that, at least for one side, it's not based in reality. There's plenty of legitimate reasons based off of factual information that we have to discuss whether this is in the best interest of the United States, whether this is the right move, whether this is just going to be a repeat of history. And the vast majority of it is speculation. But it just seems as if 90% of the criticism is coming from a place that's not based in reality. And this idea that we got drug into this by Israel, that defies everything in the lead up to it, defies everything that is Donald Trump. It defies everything that has been playing out since we began the attack. There's a piece that I thought I'd read to you because it's actually pretty good in the Federalist, which the tone of the Federalist is not supportive of this action. And in fact, unfortunately, one of the pieces that was written in opposition to it, in tone at least, has the Marco Rubio quote, but it leaves out the part where he says at the beginning, this was absolutely going to happen. That, you know, the timing of it, when the starter pistol fired, now that's a different situation, but it was going to happen. So the Federalist certainly is not, cheering on this action by the Trump administration, but there was a piece written, what was it called? How to Stay Sane and Not Look Stupid When Talking About the Iran War. And it sounds like it might be a humorous piece, but it really does have some just sort of, okay, let's be rational and reasonable in our approach on this. So I wanted to share it with you coming up. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 65. Tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms with a low near 52. For your Thursday, showers likely mainly afternoon and then mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Friday, showers likely mainly afternoon and then mostly cloudy with a high near 76.
Yeah, I got some of that rain coming down. Thunder.
Yes.
Lightning. One of the cultural, I think it's been a shift in our country when it comes to so many of these issues, is this idea that we have to settle on deciding whether something is right or not. So when it comes to what we're doing in Iran, there's like two sides. You're either behind it and it's righteous and it's absolutely the right thing to do, or this is absolutely horrible, it's awful. I believe that there is some wisdom in recognizing that sometimes we don't know, and sometimes it's a mixed bag. The other problem with this mindset of declaring we're on side for versus against is then this instinct to defend at all cost purely that position. So in other words, if it is the right thing to do, not acknowledging the downfalls. And if it's the wrong people who say, no, this is the wrong thing to do, not acknowledging that there are some benefits to it. I mean, I'll just give you one. As a human being, I was having a conversation about this with a friend of mine yesterday who thinks that this is a really bad idea, not supportive of it at all. And one thing I do look at, aside from, is this the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? Is it our interest, our best interest, not interest? Is I have, as many of you have seen, millions of Iranians across this world in tears of joy. I've seen, like many of you may have as well, in town squares across the country, from London to LA to areas throughout the Arab world, Germany, with Israelis and Iranians hugging each other and laughing and dancing. And the horrors, particularly for women and LGBTQ people in Iran, and a people who have been held hostage by an Islamic regime, a people that were not an Islamic people as a country. It was a Persian country, it was secular in nature, and they've been held hostage for decades now. And that, to me, is an incredible thing. The number of human beings who are liberated from that. Now, it's legitimate to discuss, okay, but is it our place to do that? It's legitimate to discuss, yes, but what if it turns out worse? Yes, that's all legitimate. But what happens, I feel, is that oftentimes people who, let's say, are on the side of this is wrong, completely dismiss and ignore that. I don't think that's a healthy thing to do. Something I've learned some time ago, and it's been reflected on Lord knows how many different times, is that whether something was the right decision or the wrong decision, oftentimes you don't know until down the road. You don't know. L. Purnell has a piece in The Federalist. When President Donald Trump sent U.S. Special Forces into Venezuela to capture dictator Nicolas Maduro, it was immediately hailed by some as a brilliant act of international 4D chess regarding oil, China, immigration, and condemned just as quickly by others as needless excursion into regime change territory. In those first few hours, cooler heads acknowledged the awesomeness of the raid's tactical execution, the United States' supreme prerogative to do whatever it wants to protect its interest, and also the fact that it would take some time for the geopolitical ramifications of the move to play out. With all the hindsight of 2 months, it appears to have been a total success, although there are still lingering questions like how long are we going to, quote, run Venezuela, and what exactly does that look like? If cautious optimism was warranted then, it's all the more appropriate now, a little more than 72 hours after the U.S. and Israel launched an air war against Iran. The results of a war within Iran, good or bad, will almost certainly be more far-reaching than those of the Venezuelan raid. The attack on Iran is far more multifaceted and at a much larger scale than the incredibly executed capture of Maduro, and it will take longer to play out. If you're blackpilling, you should remember that Trump has done a lot to earn trust on foreign policy issues and that there are plenty of non-crazy reasons it might be in America's interest to attack Iran. If you're already planning the victory parade, you should consider thoughtful concerns about the risks and unpredictability of wars and their unforeseen consequences, especially as we've seen them play out in the Middle East before. No matter who you are, you should pray for victory and protection for American troops and be thankful that they are committed to protecting your interest at great personal risk. You should also remember that most people on the internet don't know what they're talking about. The difference between a conspiracy theory and a fact may be a few months, but the difference between a good take and a bad take is often less than that. Personally, I ascribe to the Chris Bray school of thought when it comes to Iran and complex geopolitical issues in general, which is to say, I'm a week away from beginning to have an opinion. I don't know who needs to hear this. Actually, that's not quite true. I can think of a handful, but you don't have to have a fully formed opinion yet. And if you don't have to share it with the world. And if you do, rather, you don't have to share it with the world. It's wise, even, to continue evaluating new information and incorporating it into your outlook, and doubly so if you can do it with honesty and humility. A great way to do this is by reading widely. Another is by having real conversations with real people. And the number one rule of conversation, do more listening than talking, holds up. You can do all that and still celebrate the Ayatollah getting his just desserts in the meantime. It's always hard to tell, what information is true in the fog of war. That goes especially for a media environment in which the propagandists formerly known as mainstream media do not consider themselves beholden to truthfulness about anything. Videos online are often removed from their factual context or generated by AI, but besides general caution and thoughtfulness, there are some practical ways you can protect yourself from stupid while you monitor the situation. Be very suspicious of anyone paraphrasing what someone else supposedly said, especially if that someone else is Trump. Find the primary source in context and judge if there or it there for yourself. If your media sources are eulogizing the Ayatollah's, quote, easy smile, as I believe it was the Post or the Times did, you probably shouldn't trust anything they have to say. If American corporate media are willing to lie for political reasons, you should expect foreign media to do the same. And if our own intelligence apparatus has shown itself capable of orchestrating mass hoaxes or spreading propaganda for self-interested ends, expect nothing better from foreign intel agencies. Everyone, not just media and intel agencies, have an agenda. And many of those people will use the current thing to advance their agenda however possible. There are a lot of never-Trumpers eager to see a foreign conflict fail and derail his presidency, the midterms, and the 2028 election. There are a lot of war hawks determined to feed the military-industrial complex at any cost. And there are a lot of people who will say anything for clicks and for the payout that often comes with them. Also remember, Washington, D.C. doesn't represent the rest of the country. Average Americans are far less likely to be excited about war than the average person in D.C., where defense lobbying tops 190 million last year. They are also substantially less likely to care in either direction. Finally, keep in mind that it's hard to determine the success or failure of a mission unless you know what its objective is. Is the objective to prevent Iran from building nukes, to free the Iranian people from oppression, to preempt strikes against Americans abroad, some other national security interest that has yet to be enunciated, or some combination of all the above? Be wary of anyone proclaiming total victory or abject failure before the administration's objectives are made clear. While there are probably tactical reasons for being vague, the administration could help its cause with the American people by clarifying what exactly the objectives are. It's good to have frank and fruitful discussions, ideally in real life, on the internet if you must. The right approach is somewhere between a healthy skepticism of everyone and a healthy understanding that there are plenty of people who are smarter than you. I think that's pretty good advice. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. One of the best ways to keep your AC running in tip-top shape for years is to get regular professional maintenance on your unit. And that's why Russell and his team have created an annual maintenance program. They really have that mindset of repair versus replace. But that being said, if you are looking for a new unit, they can help you out on that front too. But they don't use high pressure sales, and they don't force you into a new unit if that's not the best option for you and your home. So that is why they created the maintenance program, because doing annual maintenance, it helps catch those costly repairs, and it just keeps your system running longer. And they do a little bit of everything. They test your thermostat, they check your refrigerant pressure, recalibrate your system, test your electrical connections, and so much more. If you are looking for the best in quality and affordability, reach out to Russell today and schedule your appointment. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
After Trump won re-election and there were a number of public instances, oftentimes athletes that started doing the Trump dance. Remember, like right after the election, somebody'd score a touchdown and it would go viral. And I believe we had the discussion just how like any president. I mean, because they always talk about Obama, he's so cool and so relevant and everything. But like you have athletes and you have like the people as public celebration mimicking a dance of Donald Trump. And I remember thinking to myself, if you had told me that day would come for any president, I just would not have been able to imagine it. And yet here we are now. You have people throughout the Middle East. You have video after video after video. Iranians, that some of which are still in Iran, others that are expat, they live as refugees in other countries, that are posting videos of themselves with their families and often friends and, town squares and so forth, doing the Trump dance.
The fist pumping back and forth.
I mean, it is so insanely crazy. And I'm telling you, I know we've said this before at these moments in which these sort of monumental things happen, or these reactions to it, and like, Lord knows what will happen next. And if you had put that Trump would be so loved throughout, what two demographics of people demonstrate currently that they have more love for Donald Trump than Israeli, specifically Jewish, Israeli Jews, and some that are Muslim, but in the Muslim world, the Iranian people, these sworn enemies, and they're doing the Trump dance. It's just an amazing thing. I thought I'd share this piece from Politico. This is from, it's somewhat relevant today given the illegal war claims, and it was from 2019. And it was a day in politics. Obama proves airstrikes against Libya March 19, 2011. On this day in history, he launched an air campaign against Libya. Again, this was written in Politico back in 2019. They noted Obama claimed that the military action sought to save lives of peaceful pro-democracy protesters who found themselves the target of a crackdown by Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Speaking on March 28th, the National Defense University in Washington, Obama said the United States and the world faced a choice. Gaddafi declared he would show no mercy to his own people. He compared them to rats and threatened to go door to door to inflict punishment. In the past, we have seen him hang civilians in the streets and kill over 1,000 people in a single day. It was not in our national interest to let that massacre happen. I refused to let that happen. Notice that there was no talk or danger towards the United States at all. In fact, during that period of time, Gaddafi was trying to actively work with the United States in order to squelch certain pockets of terrorism. Arguably, he was acting as an ally. But Democrats, without any sort of consultation to Congress, approved verbally and publicly of Obama taking military action and bombing for the purposes of overturning a regime in Libya, with the only rationale being to protect protesters in that country. I had a year and a half ago or so, sitting down with Coffee, Lori Rook, Ozarks Elder Law, and I was just jotting down notes. I still have them, in fact, and just the bullet points of the note tell you a lot of why it is you need Ozarks Elder Law. Not planning at all. Government decides where your stuff goes. No medical power of attorney assigned. Government makes your medical decisions for you. Your own spouse or kids cannot speak on your behalf. People think, oh, well, my husband or wife, we're married. Doesn't work that way. You wrote your will on a piece of paper. Missouri statutes won't honor it as a valid will, and the government will decide where your stuff goes. Public administrator could take years to get through it. These are all massive, massive burdens that take away your rights to make decisions for yourself and your family if you don't have it securely in documents by attorneys. Ozarks Elder Law, free consultation, 10 area locations.